Welcome to Gentle Calm. You know, a lot of us don't feel confused because we're empty inside. We feel confused because our inner voice has just been buried under too much noise. And it's been that way for a really long time. Think about it. You've probably spent years just listening out for what needs to be handled, constantly watching for what might go wrong, trying to figure out what everyone else expects from you. Always scanning for what the next situation demands. And after a while of living exactly like that, the outside world just gets so loud that your own internal voice starts to sound really distant. It's not gone. It's just incredibly hard to recognize anymore. From the outside, you probably look completely fine. You seem thoughtful, capable, and incredibly aware, because you're good at reading rooms. You're great at managing your responsibilities and responding right on cue. But when you finally stop, turn inward, and ask yourself, what do I actually want? The answer just doesn't come easily. Instead, there might just be silence, or a heavy fog, or maybe there's a dozen competing thoughts. Thoughts that all sound partly true, but none of them feel steady enough to actually trust. That silence inside can feel terrifying. We often mistake it for emptiness, but it's not empty. It's just a blocked signal. Your inner voice doesn't just disappear overnight. It gets buried under obligation, under fear, comparison, and a constant, exhausting sense of urgency. It gets lost in the desperate habit of trying not to let anyone down. Eventually, what you've been calling confusion is actually just interference. Something inside you is desperately trying to speak, but it has to compete with a lifetime of inherited expectations, practical worries, imagined consequences, endless mental static. This is exactly why asking yourself what you want can feel less like clarity and a whole lot more like pressure. The question lands, and instead of hearing an honest answer, you hear everything that could go wrong if you actually listen to yourself. You hear the responsible voice, the practical one, the fearful one. You hear the imagined reactions of people who might never understand you anyway. Somewhere underneath all of that, there is a quieter truth, but it just can't always rise through the noise. So, you just keep functioning. You choose what's safe, what's expected, what rocks the boat the least. You might build a whole life that works incredibly well on the outside, but just doesn't feel completely honest on the inside. And this can go on for years, because you've become an absolute expert at being externally oriented. You scan the room before checking in with yourself. You measure the mood, anticipate the blowback, and adjust on the fly. And you call all of that being responsible. Now, those skills probably helped you survive at some point. But when they become your entire way of living, something vital gets lost. You become fluent in the world's language, but you forget your own. You know exactly how to answer demands, but you don't always know how to name your own desire. You know how to stay functional and be incredibly useful to others, but you don't always know how to be honest with yourself. That is the quiet, heavy cost of too much noise. And noise isn't just sound. It's anything that steals your attention before your own thoughts can even form. Noise is the endless messages and the packed schedules. It's the pressure, the comparison, and the endless scrolling on social media. It's the habit of treating every single choice like a massive risk. It's that voice in your head telling you to be overly careful, to want less, to perfectly justify every single thing you do. That voice might sound smart, but it can quickly become a prison. A life can't just be guided by caution. It needs curiosity. It needs longing. It needs honest recognition. Without that, you get really good at avoiding the wrong moves, while completely losing touch with what a right move actually feels like. This is where so many of us begin to mistrust ourselves. We think self-trust means always having a clear, perfect answer. But self-trust really just starts with letting yourself hear a feeling, without immediately cross-examining it. For many of us, a desire pops up, and before it can even take a breath, our mind viciously attacks it. Is it realistic? Is it selfish? Is it safe? Is it just a passing mood? So the desire retreats. Not because it was wrong, but because it didn't have a safe room to speak in. Over time, your inner life just learns to be cautious. It stops offering signals because every signal gets interrogated too quickly. So when you finally crave clarity, you realize your clarity doesn't trust you anymore. It has learned to hide. And that makes your inner world feel completely muted. Like your feelings arrive late, or something feels wrong, but you can't quite articulate it. That's not always indecision. Sometimes it's just delayed self-contact. The truth is in there, but it needs a lot more quiet than your current life allows. We try to solve this by thinking harder, analyzing more, and asking everyone else for advice. We try to force the answer into focus. But more thinking is not always more listening. Listening is slower. It's much less aggressive. It allows something to gently emerge instead of demanding it perform right now. That can feel really uncomfortable if you're used to living under constant pressure. If you've spent years reacting to urgency, quiet discernment feels like doing nothing at all. But the self doesn't speak on command. It speaks when your nervous system finally stops bracing itself. It speaks when it realizes it won't be punished for telling the truth. Often, the self begins as just a physical sensation, a whisper before words. It might be a slight leaning, a soft refusal, or a sudden wave of relief. These tiny signals are so easy to miss if you expect your inner voice to hand you a perfect life plan. But if your life is too loud, those subtle signals just get completely flattened. And then your body has to resort to speaking through fatigue, irritation, or sudden sadness. Those aren't random moods. They are messages from a self that's been ignored for far too long. When you dismiss your own signals over and over, you don't become stronger. You just become harder to read from the inside out. You may know what keeps the peace, but you completely forget what actually feels true. So if you can't hear yourself anymore, please don't decide that you are empty. Ask yourself what has been too loud lately. Ask what has been actively interrupting your signal. And ask yourself when you stopped trusting the first quiet thing you knew to be true. Healing this isn't about one dramatic, overnight breakthrough. It's about repeated, tiny moments of simply not abandoning yourself. It starts with asking small, honest questions and refusing to punish the answer. Making room for a gentle no before it turns into deep resentment. Making enough room inside your day for your own life to become audible again. The answers may not arrive immediately, but the sheer act of asking with respect is already a return. It tells that buried part of you that someone is finally listening. If this reflection resonated with you, subscribe to Gentle Calm for more steady reflections on self-trust, inner clarity, and returning to your own life. And I would be curious to hear this in the comments. Where in your life has it become hardest to hear yourself clearly? Thank you, and stay calm.